dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
In the history books of Saturday morning television, few shows cast a shadow as long as the vibrant Super Friends. But while many remember the iconic ensemble, few actually recall the specific chapter we're looking at today, and the often overlooked yet pivotal second season from 1977, often dubbed the all-new Super Friends Hour. It wasn't just a return, it was a redefinition of the series. Now, after the 3-year hiatus following the initial 1973 to 74 run, the Super Friends burst back onto the screens on the 10th of September 1977 and ran through to the 16th of December 1977 on the ABC network as part of its Saturday morning lineup. This wasn't just a simple renewal, it was a grand relaunch, packaging in more heroic goodness than ever before. But how did this ambitious return come about? Well, the popularity of superhero shows like Wonder Woman and the $6 Million Man spurred the network interest in reviving the Super Friends program to capitalise on the newfound interest in superhero TV shows. When the new show was unveiled in 1977, more young children and teenagers than before tuned in, making the all-new Super Friends Hour a huge rating success. So what made it all new? Well, after Hanna-Barbera's first foray into the DC universe with the Super Friends in '73, which had been a modest success, Warner Brothers, then parent company of DC Comics, saw the market was shifting and the demand for superheroes was back on the rise. So they reached back out to Hanna-Barbera to rework the Super Friends show with the potential for a bigger and bolder iteration of the franchise. The biggest change for season 2 wasn't just the extended runtime, it was the introduction of new character designs to diversify the team and appeal to a broader audience. While Superman, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman and Aquaman remained the core, they were now joined by a trio of diverse original characters. The first being the Apache Chief, a Native American hero who could grow to giant size. Black Vulcan, an African American hero with electrical powers. And Samurai, an Asian hero who could control wind and turn invisible. And let's not forget the beloved Wonder Twins, Zan and Jaina, along with their mischievous space monkey, Gleek, who replaced the first series' Wendy Harris, Marvin White, and of course, Wonder Dog. This marked a concise effort to move beyond the traditional Justice League lineup and create a more inclusive heroic roster, a rarity for its time. The show's format was also revamped. Each hour-long episode was divided into 4 segments, 2 10-minute adventures starring the classic Super Friends lineup and 2 7-minute segments featuring the Wonder Twins and their often comedic exploits. The new segmented approach allowed for more varied storytelling and it kept the pace lively, a clever way to engage younger viewers with shorter attention spans. The creative team behind the all-new Super Friends Hour was literally a who's who of Hanna-Barbera talent. Producers like Iowa Takemoto and Art Scott steered the ship, while a dedicated team of writers crafted the optimistic, if sometimes simplistic storylines. The voice cast, however, was where much of the magic truly happened. You had the legendary Ted Knight returning as the narrator, his booming voice lending gravitas to every adventure. We have Olin Soul and Danny Dark continuing their iconic roles as Batman and Superman respectively. Shannon Farren was back as Wonder Woman, and Norman Alden lent his voice to Aquaman. Newcomers like Franklin AJ Black Vulcan, Michael Ryan Apache Chief, and Pat Farrelly as Samurai brought their unique flair to the new heroes, while Michael Bell and Libby Aubrey, the Wonder Twins, with their distinct personalities. But beyond the voices, what truly defined the show's aesthetic was its distinctive animation style. Being produced by Hanna-Barbera, it adhered to its studio's well-established limited animation technique, which, while it's cost-effective, often led to repetitive movements and some reused animation cycles. Look, it was a common criticism, with some fans lamenting the lack of fluidity compared to the earlier, more detailed animation. But look, however, it also gave the show a consistency, a recognizability look that became sort of synonymous with Saturday morning cartoons of that generation. Now, the inspiration for the stories in season 2 primarily stemmed from the vast well of DC Comics. While not directly adapting any real specific storylines, the show really drew up upon the core characteristics and power of its iconic heroes. Look, the spirit of the Justice League of America was ever present, though filtered through a child-friendly lens. The biggest departure from comic canon, of course, was the creation of those new original heroes. This move, while perhaps jarring to some comic purists, was a necessary step to broaden the show's appeal and address the network's desire for some diversity. Now look, despite the often criticised animation and simple plots, the all-new Super Friends Hour was a bona fide success for ABC. It constantly garnered strong ratings, becoming a cornerstone of their Saturday morning lineup. Its optimistic tone and clear-cut battles between good versus evil resonated deeply with children and parents alike. The success paved the way for numerous Super Friends iterations that would dominate the next decade, cementing its place in television history. And like the season before, due to the strict censorship guidelines of that era, the Super Friends rarely engaged in direct hand-to-hand combat. Villains were often subdued with a clever use of powers or moral persuasion rather than some old-school fisticuffs. Look, this led to some truly ingenious and sometimes amusing solutions to the conflicts, but let's not forget another staple of this cartoon and the era it was made in, and where the usual production quirks that were so plentiful for the time, most observant fans often spotted the usual great animation errors, like characters appearing in two places at once or the very inconsistent costume details. The legacy of the Super Friends has survived decades, as it wasn't just another cartoon. This was a cultural touchstone. It introduced an entire generation to the world of the DC Comics superheroes, serving as many children's first exposure to characters like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. It solidified the idea of a superhero team, paving the way for future ensemble animated series. And its influence on DC's animated legacy is undeniable, while later shows like Batman the Animated Series would take a more mature and complex approach. The Super Friends laid the groundwork proving the viability of animated superhero fare on TV. It's established character designs and voice interpretations that, for many, remain the definition of these characters. Even today, echoes of the Super Friends can be seen in various homages and parodies. It's a real testament to its pervasive persistence in pop culture. Now, for those of you looking to revisit this nostalgic gem, the all-new Super Friends Hour has seen several home media releases over the years. It was originally released on VHS by Warner Brothers Home Video back in the 80s, where the tapes were often just featured selected episodes with no full season releases. But the full season worth of episodes was finally released on DVD by Warner Brothers Home Videos, starting with the all-new Super Friends Hour Season 1 Volume 1 on the 8th of January 2008, containing 7 uncut original episodes, restored and remastered, and presented in its original unedited hour-long version and the original broadcast presentation. Then on the 27th of January 2009, the all-new Super Friends Hour Season 1 Volume 2 was released, featuring the remaining 8 episodes. As a side note, the episodes on these DVDs are not in their original air date order, just as they originally aired on ABC. Not that that really matters, there was no real continuity there. Now, more recently, on the 10th of September 2024, Warner Brothers released the remastered Blu-ray set of the entire Super Friends series box set of all 93 episodes from all 9 seasons of the show, remastered for Blu-ray, providing a major improvement in picture and sound quality. Now, as of this, there hasn't been any 4K release, but given the ongoing trend of classic animation restoration, we can always hope, that's for sure.
All we can do is wait and hope for the best.
Okay, so look, I was still a little too young to watch this season of the Super Friends when it first aired, and I can't say I even remember seeing any of the episodes in reruns later on here in Australia, but just like the first season, it was awesome to just sit back down and watch the, I guess you could say, the evolution of the show, when the way it sort of evolved over the years. And this is the first big revamp from that first season. I think the biggest surprise for me when I was watching it were the little segments that they had in through the season, with like different heroes giving basic safety lessons, basic health and first aid advice, magic tricks, craft projects, and a 2-part riddle put all amongst through the short adventures, which made it a real unique cartoon on like so many levels for that time, and any time after that for that matter of fact. Look, I am really enjoying watching each season of the show and watching the show change with the times and trying new and, like this one, really interesting things that other cartoons really weren't. For me, this was an improvement from the last season, with the new shorter episodes and the variety of things in the show that it really has to offer. And of course, the new sidekicks, the Wonder Twins hitting the scene, and of course Wendy, Marvin and Wonder Dog getting the proverbial ass. Which, let's face it, even though the Wonder Twins are considered pretty lame heroes in their own right, at least they were heroes in training. I mean, that makes sense, but of them being there, if you know what I mean, as opposed to their predecessors who were just 2 random teenagers and a dog. For me, this gets a solid 8 out of 10. For me, look, even though this is a step up from the first season, it's still not the version of the Super Friends that I love, which we will start to hit when we get to Season 3 and the introduction of, yes, the Legion of Doom. Look, so why does this all-new Super Friends Hour still matter today? Well, because it represents a simpler time, a period where heroes were unequivocally good, villains were clearly evil, and the world could always be saved by a combination of superpowers and moral fortitude. It was a show that celebrated teamwork, friendship, and the enduring power of hope. It may have had its animation quirks and its censorship limitations, but it delivered what it promised: an hour of pure, unadulterated superhero fun that shaped the childhoods of millions of children around the world. Yeah, and especially this kid right here. Next week on the show, we are going to look at the Incredible Hulk cartoon from 1982. Can't wait to get into that one. That one should be fun. Thanks for watching.